Hi. I just wanted to put up a little message because over the last few months I've been doing a blog. I think I've done 7, and I only do them when I feel that something is like absolutely crushing my brain and I want to get the words out. And so things that really affect me, I want to get it out, whether it's good or positive or tragic or whatever it is. So that's in general what they've been about, things that have really affected me. And for the last few weeks, it was kind of, we're all listening to the negativity of COVID and all the rest of it, and the people watching that maniac in America, you know, with his supposed COVID, and we're all scrapping over, you know, politics and, you know, our own politics here and everything else. So I sat down during the week and I watched David Attenborough's documentary on his witness statement over his lifetime of our planet. And it left me completely and absolutely breathless, I think. I do say that in my blog, a few things in my life have left me completely breathless, taken my breath away completely. And I do talk about different situations that did do that. And obviously we work in childcare, so we've had a lot of trauma and stuff like that. We started our journey a long time ago. And one of the first things that took my breath away was to see an orphanage and a sea of faces of children that had no parents. And then a couple of years later I stood in Romania, where I've never witnessed anything like the abuse. And I had a little girl in my arms, and I thought she was about 4 or 5, and it transpired I think she was 13 or 14, but they had sold her eyes to somebody who had more money than her, obviously, and so she had these 2 holes for eyes, and she had her head in my neck where she could smell my perfume, and she didn't want me to put her down. In the cot beside her there was a little boy, and they had like dirty old rags on his hands, which were all hanging off his hands, and he constantly tore the skin off his face, and I think he was about 13 or 14 and he looked about 5 or 6. So highly abused, traumatized children. So things like that took my breath away. And I try and avoid all the things that are in the world, because an amazing man called John Mulligan, who, if I didn't love him, I would be terrified of him, advised me a long time ago that my weakest point would be to stay focused in Russia, because there's so many different things going on around you all the time, so many tragic stories, that it's very hard to stay focused. And we really did stay focused for the last 22 years. And it's one of the reasons that we are as successful as we are, because we never really look left and right. We took on a project in Ireland 5 years ago. We're also equally focused about that, but it was the only time we stepped away from what we were originally doing. And we're very good at what we do, and we get huge success, and focus is one of the secrets of that. But this week something blew me away and took the ground from under me when I sat and watched David Attenborough coming on the screen and opening up with, "I am David Attenborough and I'm 94 years of age. And I'd like to give you my witness statement of my life." And he goes on then with his magnificent voice. I suppose the only thing that's wrong with David Attenborough is that he's not Irish. But if it's possible, if there's anything wrong with him. But he goes on with that beautiful English voice that he has. And he talks about his magnificent childhood, and with studying fossils, it was his hobby, blah blah. And he then goes on to talk about when he grew up, he went to be a scientist, and how the world was just opening up. Planes were just not invented, but like you could travel anywhere at that stage. He could go to the Serengeti easily. And he showed video footage of, you know, the Serengeti with the giraffes and the elephants and the millions of bison and all the rest of it. And he talked about his statistics were, like in 1954, there was 2.5 billion people on the planet. Then he goes on with the more details of the world at the time and the balance that we had in our world at the time. The most balanced we've been, like in 10,000 years, the temperature hasn't gone up much or down much. So we have this quite paradise because of that. And beautiful snow caps, beautiful forests, etc., etc. Then he goes on to 1974, and we have like 4.5 billion people on the planet, and at that stage there's only 53% of the wilderness left. And then he goes on and shows, of course, the rainforest being decimated for soya and for palm oil, which we all have in our lipsticks, in our makeups, in our presses, sinfully. And all the orangutans that died as a result, all the animals, all the tribes that were decimated. And it's shocking, absolutely. So 10,000 years ago, the human was sustainable. All these tribes in the rainforest are all sustainable. And yet we now, as he said, the most intelligent beings on earth ever, which I don't believe that actually, that we are not sustainable because we're all obsessed with meat eating and the amount of animals that have to be fed on the land. It's just, the whole thing is unsustainable. I also watched a thing called Kiss the Ground, which is a brilliant documentary on Netflix as well, with Woody Harrelson, who says we have 70 years left, 70 harvests left before it's game over. David Attenborough's programme is startling. First of all, it's beautiful, magnificent animals. He is right when he says it's paradise. Michael Harding said it last Sunday on Brendan O'Connor's show. We are living in paradise. The birds, the ants, the creatures under the sea, they're alien-esque. They're exquisite creatures on the planet. We have completely eradicated so many thousand of them. We've mangled pangolins. We've killed the sloths. We've chased elephants to the point we've torn their tusks out. And now, David, at the end, there was a scene where he hung, which to me, he showed us that scene that we've all seen during the year where the walruses are all starving and they're tumbling down cliffs trying to get to food. But it's actually not the saddest scene in the whole thing. The saddest scene in the whole thing is David Attenborough himself, when he sits at the end and he hangs his head in silence and in a tragic